big
go.
signal though.
Go.
It's September 15th, 2024, and I'm sitting here with Mr. John J. Jeckovich, and I'm reading his book, Their Mother's Sons. We're on chapter 17, and we're reading the chapter 17 on page 506, and it's titled as The News of Renee's Tragic Death. And this is still a long chapter. His book is 900 pages, and this is the first reading today. Before I start reading with your book, Mr. Jeckovich, what was your dog tag number?
42069.
Okay, that'll open it up. Mr. John J. Jeckovich was with Company H, the 2nd Battalion, the 291st Regiment of the 75th Infantry Division of the U.S. Army during World War II. Mr. Jeckovich received the Purple Heart and 2 Bronze Stars. He was shot by a sniper and still has shrapnel in his legs, and also trench foot, frostbite, and he was also injured parachuting when he hit the ground too hard. So here we are. We're going to read a little bit about Renee's tragic death. Mr. Jeckovich is home now, but the problem is that he just recently found out his girlfriend Renee, which was a former nun who became in the French Resistance because her mother and father were brutally killed by Hitler when the Nazis occupied Paris, and then later she found out that her 2 young brothers were brutally killed by Hitler, and when the Nazis did once again occupy Paris. Mr. Jeckovich and thousands of other Americans and allies removed the Nazis from Paris, and then it was back in the French hands. Renee, as a result, joined the French Resistance, and while the Nazis were occupying Paris, Renee was a great artist, and she would paint most of these SS and German military officers when they were occupying Paris, and she'd do portraits for them, beautiful portraits, and she did that for one reason and one reason only, that was to gain information for the French Resistance. Did you go down to the French Resistance headquarters?
Yeah, it's terrible. Down the sewer. Yeah.
And so eventually the SS and the German officers found out she was gathering information, and it was quick death, torture, shot, and then she's gone. And Mr. Jeckovich just found out about this. Now, we have a few text messages. A lot of them were duplicates, so I put them aside. But did you you feel up to reading any text messages and answering them?
Yeah.
Okay.
How many you got?
Well, I had several. I'm only going to point it out to about 3 or 4. But before I do that, if anyone has any text messages for this World War II vet, a combat vet, you could text us at area code 407-366-0000. Text any message to this World War II vet, 407-366-0000. Or as we say in the great island of Defusky Island, South Carolina, we say, text us at 407-366-0000. 407-366-0000. And this is a great opportunity to text Mr. Jeckovich with any questions about his book or his World War II service. Keep in mind there were 16,400,000 young men that participated in World War II. In 2024, by 2024, we lost 16,300,000 of them. We have 100,000 left. However, Mr. Jeckovich was frontline combat, and there's only about 7,000 of frontline combat soldiers left. All the rear echelon were the remainder of the 93,000, and they had a great job to do. They did inventory work, setting up the equipment, the ammunition to be shipped. There was a lot of work behind the scenes of any war, so they participated greatly, but they were never in the front combat. Most of those soldiers died during the war, or many of them died of lung cancer later, because the Red Cross would pass out to the combat vets they were all unfiltered cigarettes. They're like candy. What kind of cigarettes did the Red Cross pass out?
Pall Mall, Lucky Strike, Chesterfield.
Kent's.
Yeah, I don't know if they were filtered or not. I don't know.
There was no filters in the 40s, I assure you that. So a lot of these young men, if they weren't killed during the war on the front line, they got addicted to nicotine, cigarettes, and these are short cigarettes with no filters, very powerful. And I have a feeling that 20 or 30 years later, due to the addiction, they probably died of some type of cancer. But that's how it was there. In fact, when Mr. Jeckovich was being released from the military, there was a point system. You would have so many points to get back to the States. And the camps were named after cigarette brands, were they not?
Yeah.
What were some of the camp names?
Pall Mall, Lucky Strike, Chesterfield.
And which one were you in?
New York.
Which camp? What
camp I was in Chesterfield.
Chesterfield. Did you, being that the Red Cross was passing out cigarettes like candy, did you ever smoke?
No.
Did most of the combat soldiers smoke?
Well, a majority of them probably did.
Majority of them did, yeah, correct. Okay. So text Mr. Jeckovich, and we're losing these combat vets. 7,000 left. Most of these guys are in the late 90s, early 100s. We're losing them.
I'll be 100 next week, October 17th.
Yeah, you're getting up there. Mr. Jeckovich is knocking on the door of 100, and most people, say for example, you're 40 years old, you have a 10% chance of making it to 100. It's a great feat in itself. What's the reason why you think? Here's one of them I could just throw in at you, one of the text messages. You brought it up, you're going to be 100, you're knocking on the door of 100. What's one of the reasons? What is the secret to longevity, Mr. Jeckovich?
Clean life.
What does clean life mean? Tell me more.
No filler cigarettes, no alcohol, no dope.
How about prescriptions?
Prescription? Well, some people have to take medicine, and what are you going to do?
But you never had a prescription or vitamins. And what was your other secret? Mr. Jeckovich lives by Mr. Jeckovich lives by the thoughts that he has two doctors, his left leg and his right leg. And I think you say that because you jogged for 80 years.
Yeah, I jogged, that's what killed my knees, yeah.
Well, that was
now I'm on a wheelchair.
Well, yes, that was a pretty good trade-off. Your knees got blown out for jogging for 80 years, but the trade-off was this. You're almost 100. You could read the newspaper without glasses. You have great strength in your hand. When you shake someone's hand, you could bring them to the ground.
And I don't think it was just the jogging, it was some of the...
No, he jumped off a parachute and he got busted up that way too. But that's another time. So what got you the idea of jogging?
I read a book on, I can't think of the author, 20, 30 years ago, and he recommended people should run.
And you jogged for 80 years?
Yeah.
Did your wife jog?
No.
Did your brothers jog?
No.
Did your mother ever jog?
No.
So you're it.
I was it, yeah.
And I remember that when you were jogging, you'd have old corduroy pants, an old t-shirt, and some probably nasty sneakers of some type. And that was your jogging uniform. And many people would yell out to you, hey, can't you afford a car? Or or you need a ride, what else do they say to you when you were jogging?
He says, get a motorcycle.
Get a motorcycle. And so many of people were derogatory because, and some of them even threw beer
They
cans.
didn't understand.
Yeah, many of the people also threw beer cans at you because they didn't understand you were not jogging for transportation purposes. You were jogging for health.
Yeah.
And it paid a great dividend. You're healthy now. And then a lot of people say, get out of the road, jerk, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was interesting, the beer cans they threw at you. I can remember quite clearly, they were old-fashioned beer cans. When you popped the top, it came off. Now the beer top stays with it. So you worked at Kimberly-Clark for 30 years. Did your car ever make it to Kimberly-Clark's parking lot?
No.
So how would you get there?
Walked.
Big snowstorm, how would you get
Walked.
there? Big snowstorm.
Yeah, walked.
Uh,
Then I used the truck, the actual, take people, ship work, take them all shipped around ships.
That's when you had a major blizzard of 77.
Yeah.
When the Kimberly-Clark asked you to pick up workers in your four-wheel drive crew cab truck International, and you pick them up and take them to work. But besides that, your mode of transportation to work was walking.
Yeah.
So besides jogging for 80 years, you walked to work for 35 years.
Yeah.
For 35 years, yeah. That's a lot. Did you ever miss work in 35 years?
Pardon?
Did you ever miss work in 35 years?
No.
Oh.
I was never late either.
Never
Then I had the laundromat and everything.
So you were a hard worker like your father. Your father died at 43. He was worked to death basically. And you had, besides your job at Kimberly-Clark, which was shift work. Shift work's hard to work at, right?
No, that's a pain in the ass, yeah.
It destroys your schedule for life. You really can't do much with shift work. You also had a beautiful laundromat called Duplex Giant Wash. And what was interesting about that laundromat, it was open 24/7. It never closed. But the bonus there was, as you walk into the laundromat, it was so close to the falls itself, you would hear the roar of Niagara Falls.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that something?
Yeah.
And back then, Niagara Falls was still a city, and it was called the honeymoon capital of the world. I don't know who the hell would go there on a honeymoon now, unless you bring a machine gun or a pistol, because there's nothing but crime and violence in Niagara Falls, New York. Yet just a few, half a mile over the border, Canada and Niagara Falls, Ontario, is like Disney.
Yeah.
It's perfectly clean, right?
Yeah.
Perfect businesses, nice people. But the government, the local government in Niagara Falls, New York, destroyed the city so badly that's no longer even considered a city. It's nothing considered a village because the population is next to nothing.
You could put a laundromat in there now, unattended.
Why is that?
Never go. The culture is not right.
Not right. Plus the crime, they'd rob you blind.
Oh, yeah.
And all those years you had the laundromat, were you ever held up or broke into?
I've never wanted to take the money, change it off the wall or nothing.
And I just read in the newspaper in New York City, 45 laundromats, very similar to what you were operating. They were all robbed and machines destroyed. All the coin ops were ripped out by illegal immigrants.
Yeah,
And
migrants, yeah.
Yeah, they had no respect for that. So that's some man's business, these guys
And
are
that was
destroying.
gone. They will never come back.
So you would never be able, in your opinion, open up a laundromat today.
No.
And also, besides you running the laundromat, you did two other things. You did a lot of volunteer work for neighbors, building them porches and benches and any woodworking they wanted, you did. And you also ran a snow plowing business.
Yeah.
And a lot of the snow plowing business you did was to the funeral homes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. And all the funeral home owners were pretty nice, weren't they?
Oh, and Magadino coming for Come on in, Johnny, for breakfast with a big apron on his chest.
Stefano Magaddino was a very nice man. It was interesting. And Spallino, he would always invite you over for spaghetti.
Yeah.
And an interesting fact, and then you did Buck and Phil's gas stations and apartments.
Yeah.
Isn't it interesting? Now I'm thinking about it. You did most of your plowing for Italians. You did most of your plowing for Italians. I don't know of any Polish customers you had. It was mostly Italian.
They were mixed in. Yeah, they were mixed in.
Yeah, but when you did plowing for, say, Stefano Magaddino, he always treated you greatly.
Oh, yeah.
And it was an interesting fact when your grandson was being born in 1974. Your friend that owned a funeral home, Stefano Magaddino, he was 2 floors down from your grandson being born, and he was dying. Stefano Magaddino died, and your grandson was born. As the cycle of life continues.
Yeah.
Right? The cycle of life continues. So, if you have any questions, you text Mr. Jeckovich, and he'll be glad to answer them. And Mr. Jeckovich's life's motto is, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift. That's how Mr. Jeckovich lives his life. But now getting back to some of the text messages, we talked briefly about longevity. Many people know how you made it from that point. As we said, you're knocking on the door of 100. How old do you feel?
About 20.
20. I believe that too. You're looking well. You have a nice shave and new clothes. You had your hair done and your nails cut. I believe it. You're looking quite well. You're looking quite well. So one of the other text messages that came in was, what was the conditions on a troop shift coming from the United States to Wales?
That was 3 months.
But what was the conditions?
3 berth high.
On a troop ship?
3 berth high.
Well, tell us the conditions. How was it?
The top guy was his nose up at the ceiling.
But tell us what the conditions were like.
Well, I spent most of my time off on the deck. I never stayed below deck.
Why is that?
Well, it was muggy, geeky, and then when you're on a limey ship, it smelled like hell.
So the limey ships had a horrible odor.
Yeah.
And then who was the cooks on these ships?
Cooks?
Yeah.
The cooks were probably where we went on. We used our own cook.
And when you were debarking, everyone had to stay in their bunk, correct?
What?
When you got to Wales, everyone had to stay in their bunk and then
everybody had a color for.
Yeah. And then was the food on the ship good?
Yeah, it was limey food was greasy.
Okay, so limey food was greasy.
Yeah.
Did many of the men get seasickness?
Two of them arguably did, but they didn't get outstanding sick. They just got stuff a little upset in that, but they were sold up or nothing.
Did you get seasickness?
No.
This big, massive ship, thousands and thousands of feet long, was a sitting duck crossing that water. Did you at any times worry about being bombed? You were a sitting duck going across.
Well, they had probably 500 other ships like us out there scattered out. Now they had anti-aircraft guns, and any German planes come over, they get zooped out right away.
So you weren't too worried about being blown out of the water?
No. It's the submarines you were worried about. Well, submarines they were picking up too.
They picked up the submarines. So when after a couple months you finally made it to your destination in Wales, was that a great relief to get off the ship?
Oh yeah. Then they ran us for 25 miles.
Did many of the soldiers kiss the ground when they got to Wales? Being such a relief to get off that massive ship.
Yeah.
And then when you got off the ship, what did you do then?
We went to our new where we lived, new settings where we lived. Bring a bunk bed, bring our stuff in there. That's where we stayed for over 6 months.
Yeah. And isn't it funny, you met girlfriend number 2 in Wales. It was actually in Haverford West. And you met a beautiful girl named Jean. And Jean's last name was Young. And you're
Jean Roland Young.
Jean Roland Young. I wonder if Roland was a common name in Wales.
It was. It's an English name.
Yeah, because I don't know too many Rolands here. So Jean and her family were a nice set of people. I think the father was like a mayor of Haverford West. But an interesting story, we accounted for all 4 or 5 of your girlfriends from the military, but we never accounted for Jean Roland Young. Well, let's talk about that. Jean Roland Young was in Haverford West, and we had the Daily Mail, a large newspaper out of London, England.
Daily Mail, yeah.
They have a circulation of almost 1 million a day. They wrote a story on your behalf. It was front page story, a beautiful story. And they were helping us search for Jean Roland Young. And we came up zeros, we came up nothing. And then we had an investigator from Paris, and he went down to Haverford West to the address you gave them, and not one neighbor knew what happened to the Young family.
Yeah.
I mean, sure, the parents are probably dead, and Jean's probably in her late 90s, but we found everybody else. So if anyone knows anything about Jean Roland Young and her family from Haverford West, we sure would appreciate the information. That would complete Mr. Jeckovich's girlfriends that we know what happened to. And we do certainly know what happened to Anne Mahaney.
Yeah.
She stayed in Owensboro, Kentucky her whole life. And
Married and get settled down.
And 80 years after the war, you talked to her.
Oh, yeah.
On the phone call, you talked.
I had a picture, I took it down, put my mother up there.
Well, explain what you mean by that.
Well, I knew Jean when she was 20, 25 years old. And then when I talked to her, she was 89 years, she was real feeble.
Well, we're talking about Anne Mahaney now.
Yeah.
So Anne Mahaney, you spoke to her 5 years ago. She was still living in Owensboro, Kentucky, and you got her on the phone, and what did she say?
Feeble, she was real feeble.
So possibly dementia or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
So
Well, she's probably 90 years old.
Mid-90s. She was older than you at the time. So we located everybody, but the interesting fact, Mr. Jeckovich had in his office for decades a nice picture of Anne Mahaney. And then after he hung up the phone, what did you do next?
Took the picture down, put my mother up.
And
I could never find a picture of my mother, the portrait of Delphine. I could never find that picture.
Well,
It was a professional photographer who took that picture of Delphine.
I see. And the portrait that Renee did of you, where is that?
Oh, yeah.
That was done in Paris. Where is that?
Yeah.
Do you know?
Huh?
Do you know where it is?
No. I don't know where any of that stuff is. I don't know where that stuff is.
Just like your V-mails, right?
Yeah. 150 emails are gone.
Another question was, you made a point when you're in the Battle of Bulge to stay out of buildings.
Yeah.
Because you'd be a target. So the Battle of Bulge, a lot of people don't know, was extremely cold. It was the coldest winter in that area in over 20 or 30 years. So you're basically living out in the field in a foxhole. Many times you couldn't dig the foxhole because the ground was
We didn't have foxholes.
So where the hell did you sleep?
Except we cut small trees down and make a bed out of the ground, put leaves on top of it, build it up maybe 2 or 3 feet, and then put your shelter half on top of that, and put all the blankets they got ready to give you.
Okay, so you didn't go in a trench or a foxhole?
No.
Because you couldn't build them, you couldn't dig them.
No, foxholes were dangerous.
Did you go inside a sleeping bag?
No. We used a sleeping bag on top.
Why would you never go inside a sleeping
It
bag?
was too hard to get out of.
And you could have been
Yeah,
shot.
yeah.
Should be shot. So is that where you got your trench foot and your frostbite foot?
Oh, yeah. The right foot. I had it last night.
Uh-huh. Did many of your military buddies get frostbite?
Oh, yeah, well, they were here with me.
Did a lot of your military buddies have to be sent back to the States?
For frostbite. A couple did, yeah.
And at this time you were carrying a heavy machine gun.
30 caliber, yeah.
Explain to us what's involved with a heavy machine gun.
Well, the squad's got the gunner, the assistant gunner, and ammo bearers. The gunner carries the tripod over his neck.
And how heavy is that?
Huh?
How heavy is that?
That's about 150 pounds.
So it's
Swing
heavy.
it over their neck, and then the vacuum, the pump, the cylinder was probably 125, and it was full of water.
Oh yeah. Why was it full of water?
Keep it from freezing. It had antifreeze in it.
But to cool the barrels, right?
Well, the barrel would cool it. The water would cool it. But we had the antifreeze because the weather was freezing weather. It was freezing the water.
And then how many ammo bearers did you have?
3, 4. Well, the squad was 12, so they had 8 ammo bearers.
So that was a big thing to shoot that heavy machine gun. You need a lot of support.
Well, you had these guys going back and forth with the ammo.
So let's just say you set up the tripods and you're shooting your minutes.
Your receiver, yeah.
And then as soon as you shoot maybe 500 rounds, what would you do?
Well, the guys running the ammo should have had a build-up now with us now. We didn't want to ever run out of ammo.
So when you shot, say, 500 or 1,000 rounds, did you get up and run to another location?
No, we wouldn't shoot 1,000 rounds in one
How many would you
location.
do?
Probably shoot 150 and move.
And then what happened?
Well, then they lost the Germans lost their sight, so we moved again.
So the reason why you moved very quickly and set up someplace else,
They zeroed you in.
they zeroed you in. They zeroed you in. Did you primarily operate the machine gun yourself?
Oh, yeah.
And did the other fellows work the machine gun occasionally?
Well, they worked up assistant gunner and that.
I see. So how long would you be at one spot before you had to get up and move?
Probably half a day.
And then you run right away to
Yeah.
another spot?
Well, if we fired, if we didn't fire, we stayed there. But if we fired, they had us spot as we moved.
And what was the reason why you wouldn't go in any buildings?
Because you're restricted in a building. Once they know you're in a building, they send their artillery over the top and burn the building down.
And so you would be a target instantly.
So you're better off outside.
Minutes?
Minute 30.
So you spent most of your life outside.
Yeah.
But what happened when you went to a barn? Who found you in that barn? You said when you went to a barn, Patton pulled up.
Yeah, Patton Post didn't camouflage the Jeep good enough. Pat spotted it.
And what did he say?
And he said, get your ass out and go to the next checkpoint right now. And that was 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah. It was an interesting thing. Patton was very active in the war you were at. And most of the soldiers, combat soldiers, wanted to be done with the war, to go home. Patton's idea was, let's get this Battle of Bulge done in a hurry, because I'm going to the Pacific. I want to make a name for myself.
Yeah, well, no, all those top generals did that, yeah.
He couldn't wait to get to the Pacific.
Yeah. But he was active. He was active he was more active eyes than some of those other generals.
Yeah, so the combat vets were trying to get home, and he was trying to get to another war.
Yeah.
Didn't they call him Blood and Guts? Was it?
Blood and guts. His guts and our blood.
Let me think about it. His guts and your blood. Is that what they referred to him as?
Yeah.
Minutes.
18 seconds.
That is interesting. And that was his nickname then, right?
Blood and guts.
Yeah. Wow.
And he got hit with a commercial cart.
Yeah. And he died at a young age.
Yeah, he had a concussion. They didn't treat it a concussion.